Okay, so continuing with our assignment 1 demonstration, the fantasy landscape. I've taken the reference images and I've used at least 5 of them in my 2 sketches. I have a landscape format sketch here and a portrait format sketch here. And there's not a whole lot of vertical interest in my portrait format. I don't like just having kind of these horizontal bands. I like the broken horizon here much more. I like the immediacy of having foreground elements really shoved in the face of the viewer. So this is the one I'm going to go with. But before I do that, I'm going to make sure I save this. Not just as the PSD that I started with when I did these sketches, but also just as a JPEG. So I save as a JPEG, both of my sketches, because that's the first thing I will submit for this class. So I'm going to save that to the desktop, and I'm going to put my name with that file. So that will go into PhotoBucket along with our finished composite. Now there's another reason we digitize our sketches, because we really want to build our sketches build our project based on our own ideas. So now I'm going to crop the image by using the crop tool and dragging the corners down to around the sketch I like the most. This becomes my blueprint for how I'm going to use those found images. And it might change a little bit, but I crop down to it, and then I'm going to go to image size, and I'm going to make this the right size now. A lot of you did sketches in your sketchbook, and then we took photos just using the camera in the computers. And so those are really low resolution images. So here we're going to force them to be much bigger. And the way you can force an image to grow pixels is by clicking on resample, making sure that your proportions, width and height, are locked together so it doesn't distort. And I'm going to make mine fit within a 13 by 19 inch piece of paper, but most mats that we'll use only go 11 by 14 inches, so I think I'll stick with 14 inches wide by whatever the height is. So mine's going to be 14 by 8 inches. And the resolution we will always use, our standard lab resolution will be 350 pixels per inch, which is 50 pixels per inch more than standard print resolution. So it allows us to enlarge our images just a little bit at the end and still have high quality resolution. So 350. So when I do that, you're going to see how that really softens up my lines, because it built a lot more pixels. But that's okay, because this image is not what I'm going to be printing or finishing. This is just my plan underneath. All right, now I'm going to take that sketch, which has now been sized to 11 by 14 inches or something around that by 350 pixels per inch, and I'm going to grow my canvas around it. So I go to image canvas size, and I'm actually going to grow the paper around it to be like a desktop surface. I'm going to make it 40 inches wide because I'm doing a landscape format by 30 inches tall with white as the background. I can fit that all on screen by hitting Command 0. And now this is my image, but I have space now to put all my different composite layers. And I'm going to use my plan so I can refer back to my original sketch if I need to. I can have it open in preview and say, oh yeah, I have the rubble there, so I need to bring in the rubble layer. And I'm not going to open it in Photoshop. Instead, I'm just going to click on the icon, drag and drop it right onto my file. And you see, because this was 10 megapixels, it's almost exactly the right size automatically. But it comes in as what's called a smart object, and it has this big X through it. And before it will let me do anything else, it will make me do what's called placing the object. And you do that just by hitting return. It's like transforming. But before I do that, I can actually size it a little bit, just like transform tools. So I'm going to hold down Shift so it doesn't distort. And I'm just going to size it a little bit smaller so it fits into where I think the rubble needs to go. Let me make sure I'm remembering where the rubble needs to go. Where's my preview? Huh. I'll just make it easy on myself, and I'll open this in Photoshop as well, because preview seems to be giving me trouble. So you want to be able to reference your sketch. So my rubble is actually pretty big. So when I bring it in, it's actually this whole section here. So when I bring it in, I want to make sure that it's at least that size. And it basically is about that size as is. And if possible, you want to avoid making it bigger, because then the computer has to make up pixels. I was thinking it was back here so I could make it smaller, but no, I want this pretty big. So I'm going to place it just as it is, hit return. And now the next step is I can zoom in using Command plus, and then hold down the space bar to be able to move around my frame. And now I need to select the parts of this photo I want to use. And I'm just going to do a rough selection with the lasso tool. I want to make sure I get more than I need. So I'll get all this rubble, get all of this. I'm going to cut around that watermark, right? So I've now lassoed around the part I want to kind of cut out, like if it was a magazine picture. This is what I want. And then how do I cut it out? I'm going to hit Command J. Now Command J does a few things that are important. It duplicates it onto a new layer, but it also does what's called rasterizing that smart layer. Because if I try to edit directly onto a smart layer, it won't let me. And so by copying and pasting a selection onto a new layer, it takes care of the problem for me, and it preserves the original in case I want something that I didn't take. All right. Next component, this shipwreck thing. Drag and drop it. That one's huge. Way bigger than 10 megapixels, very nice, but I don't need it that big. So I'm going to hold down Shift, make it smaller. Something about that size. Yep, that will work. Hit return to place it. And then circle around your image. I don't like any hard edges. And then duplicate it. Because there's nothing that makes something look like it's just cut and pasted as having hard edges clearly visible. So I have that component. That's going to go there. Leave it off to the side for now. Next component, this big glump thing. It's tucked into the corner. Another nice huge reference. But I only need it to be the size that I'm planning on printing it. With digital art, you always work with the end in mind. And so it's going to be maybe that size. Then I lasso around it, giving myself plenty of overlap space. So I want a lot of that ground, but I want to soften all of these crisp edges around it. Command J, duplicate it, turn off the layer behind. Use the move tool, move it off to the side. I've got the street there. That was from this photo. Drag that in. And we learn through repetition. And I might be able to use just that skyline kind of across the back. It kind of sets my horizon line, so about that size in my image. But even though I want to use most of it, I want to soften those hard edges a little bit. So I'll have to transition that sky into another sky. Use the move tool, Command D deselects, push this over to the side. What I love about Photoshop too is even if you push it off like that, it still remembers the image in that layer outside of the frame. Pixlr and some cheaper visual editing software doesn't do that. So I want to put this over here, and it's okay if some of it's off of the frame. It's still there. Okay, that's 4. Now I need some of the sky. And I like the clouds here. But notice it's not quite big enough. Even though it's 10 megapixels, for covering the whole sky, this might not be the best option. But I can use pieces of it for sure. And it's always good to have to composite from more than one source for what you want. So I'll get kind of a nice soft cutout of that sky. And then the other one I have for sky is this one, which is quite a bit larger. And I especially like kind of that coastal part of it. I don't know if that will be visible. So I might place that in real size. I kind of just grab a big chunk of it, like so, to make use of. And because it might even be in the corner, I might just take this whole corner. All right, so now I've got my components. At this point, you've got your main components. We're going to be adding a lot of other things once we have these fit together. I want to save it, because right now it's still just your sketch. So you're going to save this now, File, Save as your first assignment. So use your name, call it Assignment 1. I'll actually call it Digital Assignment 1. PSD to the desktop. Because now we're going to be asking a lot of Photoshop. This is a very large file, high resolution. Right now it's almost a gigabyte big. It's 832 megabytes right now. So now I don't need this open anymore. I have the references I can start building with, and I'll be adding more later. I don't really need this anymore, right? I know what I'm working with now. And you want to take any other programs that are open, that you don't need open, and close them. Like I'll quit Preview, which has a lot of things open. I'll leave Chrome open in case I want to do other image searches. But other programs that aren't necessary, close those so that Photoshop has as much RAM as possible. And if it starts to seize up or act slow, save your work immediately. It's good to just save it as you go. You can always just hit Command S, and that will automatically save where you are. And then you might need to restart your computer. Okay, the next step in the next demo is going to be placing these together in the puzzle, putting the layers in the right order, and then making more fine selections, cutting them out, and then working the transitions between them. And then possibly getting more reference as needed.